All right. What is going on, MJ? What is going on, Cody? Let's get this Mama Jamma going. Let's have a little bit of a trade reaction. Let's talk Vikings, but first, let's go through these trades. I know there is one more we have to discuss because Adam Schefter posted a trade deadline uh, move from the Saints to the Chargers, trading offensive lineman Trevor Penning to the Chargers for a 2027 sixth round pick. So that is the newest one, but we'll go through the picks here. I hope everybody's doing great. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. I am your host, Supreme Overlord, aka Mr. AI Man 3000, aka Mr. and Purple Gold bars for your service. All right, guys. Let's get right to it. Let's hit that intro. Actually, let's quickly recap. We're going to go over the trade deadline, all the moves. We're going to make some judgment based on on what was given up and if it was the right move for that team. And then we will discuss what our Minnesota Vikings did at the deadline. Spoiler alert, nothing. All right, guys, let's hit that intro. All right. So like I was saying, we'll start with the so far. The last minute trade that has been announced so far. I waited an extra 30 minutes just to see if there was anything that just kind of slipped in at the very end. Offensive lineman from the Saints traded Trevor Penning to the Chargers for a 2027 sixth round pick. And, I'm not mad at that. Their O-line is decimated. A seventh round pick doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. But I really don't know how good of a lineman he is. And I'm assuming that my assumption always is when it comes to the trade deadline is teams making drastic moves. There's very, very few trade deadline moves that actually are beneficial for both teams. It's always one side taking advantage of the other or people reaching for players because they're just so banged up or whatever it is, or just hurting in so many needs. The prime example this week or these last couple days is the Dallas Cowboys. Oh my goodness, man. Well, you guys made all those moves to get like 5% better and nowhere near the playoffs. So great job. Now what are you going to do in the draft? Giving up some big moves. I don't get it. But anyways, let's move into it. We got the Dallas Cowboys, as I was saying. They pick up defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. They gave up defensive tackle Maisie Smith. And they also gave up a 2026 second round draft pick, which is, that's rough. And a 2027 first round draft pick. Man, talk about selling your future for really no gain. Like, I don't know. I get they made a bunch of moves here, but really, are they just going to miraculously get on the squad today, and then as of next week, they're just going to be playing at the highest level possible? They're going to know all the ins and outs of the team, or are they going to struggle? Is there going to be a lot of miscommunication out there? Probably the latter. And so I could imagine if they were like 5-4 or something, had a shot at actually making the playoffs and then potentially do something for the playoff run. So because that gives you time to kind of grow and with these new players and make it so the Cowboys can actually be, fully on the same page going into the playoffs. But they ain't making the playoffs. Are you kidding me? So you go from a 32nd ranked defense to like a 22nd ranked defense? You think that's going to help? I don't know. I don't know about you, but that seems like pure retardation, for lack of a better way of saying it. Unbelievable. The Chicago Bears and the Cleveland Browns make a trade. Defensive end Joe Tryon Shoyinka was traded to the Bears. They receive a 2026 seventh round draft pick, and the Browns receive a 2026 sixth round draft pick. So not much of a huge impact here for the Chicago Bears, as they're giving up some trade capital, some draft picks, but also getting one in return. So it's not as good as the previous one, but when you have it, uh, you can combine that with a bunch of other draft picks and maybe move up to a player that actually might be worth, depending on the situation, right? So, it's better to have more draft picks than not, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, if things don't play out and he doesn't work out, or it just turns out to be a bad fit and they lose him in free agency, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? They have to move on. They cut him or sign him or waive him, you know what I mean? Like, you now have one less draft pick and you've given them, but this isn't too bad. I'm not totally upset with this one too. They're 7th and 6th round, so it's not like you're really giving up too much when you go from a 6th to a 7th, right? So not too upset at this one. We'll see how Joe does in transitioning and becoming a defensive end here for the Bears. It's been weird because I do follow the channel, good old Nick over there at Just Another Year Chicago Bears, and he's been every week it seems like they're bringing in somebody new. They're signing someone off of waivers or picking up free agents, defensive ends, tackles, linebackers. They're bringing in like everybody to try to fix whatever is ailing them. So is this guy going to be the guy that is the Band-Aid that's going to stick? Because really, it's going to be a Band-Aid for the rest of the season. So we'll see how that plays out, but I don't think it's going to totally affect their future, which I think a lot of teams sacrificed way too much here to make something happen here. Talking about teams that gave up a little bit too much, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe in hindsight, actually, maybe it might be what they perceive as their only shot of really making a deep playoff run. Maybe why they're moving on from a 4th round pick and a 5th round pick. Those are definitely something that can be packaged up with a little higher draft pick in order to move up and actually get a quality player. So that might bite them in the butt. But at the same time, Rashid Shaheed is a pretty decent number 2 wide receiver, maybe borderline 2-3, I guess. Maybe he's had some good games, he's had some bad games. He's not. He kind of disappears at times, but that gives a little bit more relief to JSN because JSN has been unreal. He's, to me, him, Jonathan Taylor, and a couple other players, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, some of the players that have been just like standout players looking for, the best, that are kind of like standing out as the best player in the league at this moment. So maybe it's enough, because I'm on record. I'm not going to stop saying this, that I don't think Sam Darnold is going to carry this team to any significant win in the postseason. I think the team is going to have to cover for him and make up for the mistakes that he's going to have. And he's just going to have to do enough. And it's going to have to be a total team effort for them to make it deep and even have a shot at something. Sam's an awesome quarterback. I think he's a fantastic regular season quarterback. I've been saying that since last year. He has a place in my heart as a Vikings fan for what he did last year. It was a hell of a season. It was so much fun. And even with the 2 losses at the end, it was still a great season in my opinion. But he's on the same trajectory as Jared Goff. Potentially ending up as a very good quarterback with elite stats, elite regular season play, with nothing to show for it in the playoffs. If he is going to become a playoff caliber, Super Bowl caliber quarterback, he needs to show improvement this season, and in the playoffs specifically. So if he goes out there and even with Shaheed out there, opening up more of the offense, and he still can't figure it out and he still struggles, it's going to be quite the learning curve for these Seattle Seahawks as they progress over the next 2 seasons. Because I think, in my opinion, I feel like he's going to do a little bit of progress. I feel like he'll play better. He's not going to be looking like garbage like last year. I'm hoping that he's not going to completely collapse like that. And I think he's just going to be playing, mediocre to bad, which is an improvement, not a great improvement, not something that you can win a Super Bowl with or make a deep playoff run, but it's growth in the right trajectory. And then I anticipate the following year him being average to mediocre And then at that point, that kind of confidence that he builds from that, I think will kind of spark that change that he needs to have inside with his internal confidence. Because it's an internal thing with Sam Darnold. And this may or may not be a great move here, but I totally understand they have that win now mentality because they see what they're doing in the playoffs and they're getting overconfident. And I can tell because I'm a Vikings fan, I definitely remember a lot of overconfidence by a lot of fans going into Week 18 and then into the playoffs. You know, I still was saying that it's gonna be a miracle run for us to make it with Sam. There's still a lot of questions to be answered when it comes to playoffs and dealing with that pressure. And when we saw him in those 2 games, he went back to New York Jets Sam, seeing ghosts, struggling, making terrible decisions, panicking, all those things that he needs to get under control. And I think he's going to make a step forward this year, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And I'm hoping that this doesn't drastically affect the future of the Seattle Seahawks because I think they're a good team. I like them. It's not like I hate or I'm a hater towards the Seahawks. I'm just a realist. And I understand and I see things a little bit differently than most. So, not overly upset at this move because I understand they're in a win now situation, but I am concerned because if things go wrong, this could very well bite them in the butt, especially if, their ability to make a draft day move is heavily hindered by not having those picks, right? So moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. Here's a team that I don't know if this was a great move because Daniel Jones is clearly behind Sam Darnold in his reclamation project. A lot of people were expecting Daniel Jones to basically ride into the playoffs, having, maybe 1 or 2 losses on the record and just looking like a world beater the entire time. And boy, was that not the case this weekend. He accounted for 5 turnovers this week, and it just kind of reminded people of that New York Giants Danny Dimes where when things get tough and the pressure is put on him, he's flustered, he makes bad decisions. His decision-making is severely, severely hindered when the pressure and the weight of having to put on the cape are put on him. He just crumbles. And that's why I say his reclamation project is still an ongoing thing, just like Sam Darnold's is. He's a little bit further behind. And so I still feel like he's going to struggle this year, next year, and maybe the year after that. If the Colts decide to commit to him, then that's what we're going to see, in a few years here, 3, 4, where he's actually starting to look like the player that people are too hopeful that he is now. I love KOC and I love our quarterback room, but there's only so much fixing you can do. There's a lot of an internal struggle within these quarterbacks that also they need to work through. And I don't think he was on the roster long enough to be able to make any tangible progress. And I think last week kind of proved it, especially against the Steelers defense that has been struggling and looked very rusty at times this season. Slow play Slay's been out there trying to make an impact and hasn't been the guy that he's been known for. Jalen Ramsey hasn't looked like the world beater. He looks like just another guy out there at times, but credit to that defense. They came up big and they forced a lot of pressure and put that onus on Daniel Jones, and he crumbled. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I still like the Colts. I still think they're a good team. This move, I feel like, is a lot of selling the future for a potentially not a really good playoff run. Maybe I'm just being too pessimistic, I guess, when it comes to the reclamation project that Daniel Jones is on, because I've been predicting that this kind of loss is going to happen sooner rather than later, and it just took a little bit longer than I expected, but it's there, and now we know that is still something that these Colts have to worry about. They need to be having a lot more impact from Jonathan Taylor and the rest of the team in order for Daniel Jones to be able to produce at a level where they can win like they have been. And in the playoffs, teams are going to sell out to stop your best player. And if Jonathan Taylor is your best player and the offense is going to be really picking apart your defense, sorry, Daniel Jones, it may not be it this season. So I don't know if this was quite the great move. I understand it's a more of a future pick It's not a pick in saying like this is just a 1-year rental or whatever. This is clearly a move where they're sacrificing being able to pick up a good player, and just in order to get actually a really good player that's still relatively young and has a lot of potential still. So he's going to be on the team for a while, and that's definitely going to be an impact on this defense. But like I said, he ain't going to be on offense. And when they sell out teams, good teams in the playoffs sell out to stop Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones is going to be the guy that's going to be holding them back, not Sauce Gardner. So I like the pick as in for fit-wise that they need a guy like this. I just think maybe this may have been too expensive. A 2026 and a 2027 first-round pick. Oh, my goodness. I think it's a bit of a reach. Like I was saying at the start of this, I was like, this is the time where a lot of teams, a lot of the trades that happen right coming up at the deadline, these are teams taking advantage of other teams, and these are teams that are desperate to fix things and maybe even reaching too far because they think this is what's going to be what gets them over the hump. And rarely do we see that, right? When was the last time we seen a team sell out at the trade deadline in the NFL and it actually pan out to a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments, because it's not coming to me right away. But they also get a wide receiver, Mr. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell. So I don't know if that's going to affect the passing game and the ability to kind of open up the field. I don't know much about him. I don't know if I'm assuming he's a depth receiver. So therefore he's going to have issues most likely with some area, route running, pass catching, speed, gaining separation, right? Like all these little things, coming up with yards after the catch. Like, like it might just be a basic possession receiver. We're yet to see if that's going to make an effect on these Colts, but not a total fan, but I understand where they're coming from of this. I think it's just way too heavy of a price to pay for that. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars make a move to pick up a solid number 2 wide receiver. Now, Jacoby Myers, as we talked about this on the Real to Sports podcast on Saturdays that I'm on, and we're going to be on that podcast this weekend at 1 p.m. Eastern this weekend, talking about all things football. And we talked about Jacoby Myers in particular. And I kind of, I didn't have the Jacksonville Jaguars up there because I saw there was other teams with higher need for a solid number 2. But I'm not too upset at this move because the Jacksonville Jaguars are in that moment of in that zone of transitioning to a Mike Shanahan style offense, because Liam Cohen is from the Mike Shanahan, KOC, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, right? So they need a solid wide receiver number 2. Jacoby Myers is a quiet receiver. He's not the leader. He's definitely a guy that goes out there and does very, very good at what he does as a solid number 2. But he's not that guy, right? And they got other guys on that squad that can be the number 1 receiver and kind of take on that load. So I like the move. I'm not sure a 4th and a 6th round, if that's a little bit too expensive to pay for a number 2. With that being said, I don't know how many draft picks the Jaguars have. So maybe they were sitting on a bunch of draft picks. So maybe it's not going to hurt them that bad. But 4th, I know a 4th can definitely be bundled in with a couple other things in order to kind of move up, maybe into the early 3rd, maybe late 2nd, if there's somebody that's really, really a potential a good player that could fit their scheme. So the jury is out on this one. I feel like this one is a decent price for them. It might be, in my man, I can't. Maybe it is a 50. Maybe this probably, because I'm trying to think who's going to benefit the most of this. The Las Vegas Raiders are definitely going to be needing to make some draft day moves here in order to solidify more of their team, because they have a ton of potential. I've been saying this since before the season. I really like the team because I like the potential that they have. They're just going to have to work through the growing pains and injuries like they've been plagued with, right? So their star left tackle is out, right? Their draft picks at the O-line haven't panned out really. So this might be a way for them to kind of get back into the into the mix and kind of develop a good young team in order to support whichever quarterback they decide to move forward with, whether that's Geno or they draft someone, or to support the O-line or the players around. Brock Bowers is an incredible tight end. Man, he's something special. Man, he's good. But yeah, as of right now, it feels like maybe this might be a pretty even trade. Maybe I might say that Jacksonville reached a little bit. Maybe they could have gotten away with a fifth and a sixth, maybe 2 sixths and a seventh. Come on, something where, maybe not like for like a 6 and a 6 for the following year and a 6th and a 7th for next year. Something like that maybe might have been able to get them to move. Maybe some cash compensation, something. Come on, you know what I mean? Save that 4th round pick. It might be useful, and I think the Raiders might be able to take advantage of that. Moving on to the Cowboys. Ooh, wow. Let me get caught up on the chat here. Yes, Kwesi did not do nothing, Cody. Cowboys did go all in, that's for sure. And they did need secondary help. The Colts definitely looked like they needed it. So I understand the move, but I feel like it might have just been too expensive. It might have been out of that. I think back of that scene in Draft Day, and the Jets are the ones in that offense. Like, who can we fleece here for sauce? Someone that's desperate and is just a bad organization that just doesn't know. The Colts, they just got destroyed yesterday, so they're even more in panic mode. Oh, let's give them a call. And we got 2 first rounds out of it and a receiver. So makes me feel a little bad for them, but maybe it was the right call. I just don't think it's going to be this year that's going to prove to be beneficial. Maybe the next year or the year after. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, Cincinnati Bengals trade Logan Wilson, linebacker, and the Cowboys keep on giving up draft capital. They give up a 2026 7th round pick, so it's not a crazy move, but Logan Wilson, a depth linebacker. I get there. At this point, a depth linebacker somewhere else is probably a starter for this terrible, hot garbage Dallas Cowboys secondary or linebacker crow or defense in general. So it's going to, without a doubt, their defense got better. I'm not going to deny that from the Cowboys because they definitely made a little bit of a splash here trying to salvage their season, even though I don't think they have a chance. On a 9% chance, I don't know if I would waste this kind of draft capital. Just keep it all and try to draft a whole bunch of young guys and make, at the very least, go fast and young. You know what I mean? Look at the Broncos and look at the Bears last year. This year they're struggling on defenses, but last year they went young, they went fast, and now the Broncos are looking like one of the best defenses in the league with guys that nobody knew were going to emerge, right? Maybe they just don't trust their scouting room. You know what? Their scouting room's probably a freaking dumpster fire too, so maybe it is the right move. So they move on from a 26 7th round draft pick to pick up a depth linebacker that's probably going to be a starter on this Cowboys defense. Man, you know what they should do? The Cowboys need to be calling up into the CFL and seeing, hey guys, you guys have any linebackers or secondary players that you guys can spare? Because we're hurting, because it's about that point in time for these Cowboys where they got to be looking at the CFL to make something happen, because it ain't looking good for these Cowboys, man. In the words of the great Stephen A. Smith, just wait. Just be patient. Because what can go wrong will go wrong. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, yeah. Here we go, guys. So now we got moving on to the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans making a move here. Now the Titans move on from Dramont Jones, linebacker. This Baltimore Ravens looked a little bit, defense looked a lot revitalized this last week. Tyler Hamilton, I think it is, the linebacker, safety, corner, multi-purpose Swiss action knife that the Baltimore Ravens unleashed last week. Looks like something. Like, I think this is his 3rd year in the league. So, man, I was watching him play and I was like, man, this guy's going to be something special. If he can dial it in and become more consistent, ooh. he's gonna be turning some heads. He made me notice him, and I'm excited to see what he does in the future. And maybe with Dramont Jones here, maybe they can solidify this Ravens defense, and maybe make a little bit of run for it. So I'm not upset. It's a fifth round draft pick, so I'm feeling like the Tennessee Titans feel like he was a little bit more valuable. So they weren't willing to move on for anything less than a fifth, which is pretty nice to see. Tennessee trying to pick up as much, or no, the Baltimore, I mean, so give up a fifth for to get him because they see that he has some potential, is what I meant to say. Tennessee, it's looking good because they're picking up more draft picks, right? So whichever coaching regime comes in here, I'm excited to see what they do, because I am definitely on the record. I really like Cam Ward. I want him to succeed. He throws a really nice ball. I know it hasn't looked good at times, most of the time, 90% of the time. Okay, I will give you that, but I'm willing to give him a pass until he gets a nice coaching regime. Hopefully they bring in a veteran coach, an offensive-minded coach, and they kind of revamp that quarterback room with the coaching staff there, and maybe can start developing him in the right way. And hopefully this season doesn't totally put so much bad habits created so that he can kind of transition, and hopefully next year we can kind of see what we should have expected to see from him had he been drafted to a good team or a good coaching staff, not a good team, because we understand the nature of a high draft pick there. So I'm not too mad at this one. This one looks pretty even as of right now. We will see how Dramont Jones plays out. Maybe it was a little bit too much to give for the Baltimore Ravens if he doesn't immediately produce or doesn't have an impact in the second half of this season, but I'm not mad at it. Philadelphia Eagles and Miami Dolphins trade yesterday. Linebacker Jalen Phillips, and they gave up a third-round draft pick. Ooh, this is definitely a reach, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Like, I get it. Jalen Phillips is a pretty decent guy. I know a lot of people, a lot of teams that were pass rush or linebacker needy were definitely identifying him as a potential trade target, especially with the Miami Dolphins, because a lot of people expected them to be a seller at the deadline, which they were a little bit. They moved on for some players because they were trying to be smart about it, but they didn't move on from Waddle like a lot of people expected, and they didn't move on from, who's the other guy? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank here. Darn, I can't remember. Let me do a little bit refresher. Maybe we have another last-minute trade deadline move. I honestly, after I had it last night when I was watching the Cardinals, I saw Adam Schefter just posted something about the Cardinals. I was like, oh my God, it happened. I honestly thought that I was like, one of the reasons that they didn't want to play Kyler yesterday is because if he got injured, he would have lost all kind of the little trade value that he had. And I thought maybe they're going to make a move. And maybe I thought maybe a little Tua and Kyler Murray swap going here, because both those experiments definitely ain't panning out. And maybe a switch of environment in that chip on the shoulder that would come onto that would be placed on these two quarterbacks. Maybe that would be the turning point for them to kind of start doing something. And, maybe it would be a win-win situation, but we didn't see that happen so far. I don't see any trade confirmation for a Kyler Murray move, but, it is what it is. But a third-round pick, I think the Eagles are a little bit desperate here, guys. I think internally they see the writing on the wall. These guys are definitely flawed. I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're the Super Bowl caliber team that a lot of people want to say they are. They haven't even put a full four quarters together. They put 3 quarters together against my Vikings, but that entire second half they couldn't even do anything on offense. It was like 3 or 4 3-and-outs in a row. Like they just couldn't do nothing. The running game was anemic, right? So there's a lot of concern internally is what this is telling me right here, because for a third-round pick, trying to kind of right the ship here, it ain't looking good. And then the next one is what makes me think, What are you guys thinking? Philadelphia Eagles trade for Jair Alexander. Has he even played a single game this season? Has he? Honestly, I feel like he's been so banged up and injured all season that, like, what is he thinking here? But it is what it is. Eagles are desperate. Baltimore Ravens are getting, you know what? Maybe this is one of the draft picks that they traded away in order to get this linebacker here. 2026 conditional. No, so this isn't a conditional. So it is. They got rid of one of their conditional picks, and they kept the Baltimore 6th-round draft pick. And this might actually be pretty decent, because if the Baltimore Ravens end up falling apart due to injury or something like that, because it's very well, like, as much as I love Lamar and he's one of my favorite players, he's got to be super careful over the next few weeks. He can't be opting to run and taking hits and putting his hamstring or his body on the line right now, because if he goes down for any amount of time, it's over. They need to be literally next to perfect for the rest of the season in order to sneak into the playoffs. So, for the Eagles, this is a good situation here, right? They got a 7th-round draft pick that might actually be a little bit higher if everything goes south for the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens getting a 2026 6th-round pick might be something good. But Jair Alexander, my goodness, when the heck was he good last? And more importantly, when has he been able to stay healthy? I don't know, man. I don't know. Is he is he the NFL's version of street clothes? Anthony Davis? Oh, I shouldn't be mocking, because he just got injured again. I totally forgot. Oh, Anthony Davis, what is wrong with you, bro? You need to work on your recovery, not just your weight training, bro. You need to do your stretching. You need to do all this stuff, because if not, your body's not going to handle it. Oh, sorry for the little bit of the NBA rant there, but that is just so appalling to me. But we got the Eagles again making another move. They got the Eagles trade for a corner. They get a 7th-round draft pick out of it. They give up a wide receiver, John Mechie III, and they give up a 6th-round draft pick in 2027. Both 2027 draft picks, so not in the upcoming draft. So it's not going to be an immediate impact. We're not going to see them hurting so bad. But I don't know, man. This should be red flags if you're an Eagles fan, if you're watching all these plays, all these things, because from what I see from Eagles fans and their content creators, they're like, got this delusional disbelief that there's no way it's 2023 all over again. We're this is it. We are Super Bowl bound. If you're Super Bowl bound, why do you got to make all these moves? Just saying. So I think that this is definitely showing the hand the Eagles have here. These guys are going to have to pick it up. Is Jair Alexander even going to play this year? Like, he might be back at the very end of the season and might be able to do a little something here and there, but is it going to be worth trading for him? I don't know. Baltimore Ravens might have stolen a 6th-round draft pick here because they gave up a 27 draft pick to get a 22. That might be the play. The Baltimore Ravens might have fleeced them here, because if Jair doesn't even make it back onto the field this season and they lose out, oh my goodness, these Eagles, man. And now another trade, the Jets. Another quarterback trade from the Eagles here. John Mechie. Wait, is that the same one? Oh, that's the one that I just said. So anyways, and then I think this one was a little bit already discussed. I think we don't got to go any further than this, because the Steelers picked up a safety, and the New England Patriots received a 6th-round draft pick in exchange for giving up a 7th-rounder. So it looks like they probably made out like bandits here. So let's give this page a refresh here to see if there's any new trades that have been announced. They haven't even come out with the Saints-Chargers trade, unless it got vetoed or something, or maybe we'll get some further news on that. But it is what it is. Now let's get over to let's find a nice little picture for us to watch here. Photos. Let's go. Here we go. On that almost touchdown kick return. Let's find, maybe, actually, let's go back. Let's go find, yeah, here we go. Here we go. Let's find one. Oh, yeah. I wish man, I've been looking everywhere to try to get a picture of, um, of JJ McCarthy doing the gritty, and man, it wasn't the greatest gritty, but it was so fun to watch him gritty after doing the old ice in the veins freaking celebration after that awesome touchdown run. You know, he didn't have a perfect game. He's going to tell you himself. There was a lot of meat left on the bones, in his words. And so that is the attitude that you want from a future franchise quarterback here. And I think he's well on his way to proving he is him. Number 9 is him, guys. So let's move on and talk about the Minnesota Vikings trade deadline. So far, it's pretty clear we didn't do anything. We didn't make a move or anybody, and I think that was the right decision. A lot of people want to say that we don't have a depth at corner. We need a safety. There's a lot of stuff talking about depth. You know, and I get it. I get wanting to kind of fill in those holes, but I don't think during the trade deadline is the right way to do it. We got 7, maybe 9 draft picks right now, and to give up draft picks when we need them at this point is just a bad idea. You know, there's going to be a bunch of players over the next couple days that are going to end up on the waiver wire, that are going to be depth players, that are going to be corners, safety, stuff like that I'm sure we're going to be eyeing up. And those guys are going to be just as good as trading for someone and potentially giving up too much. A lot of talk's been going on about how Kwesi can't draft and he's missed on all these things. He's only hit on Jordan Addison. And even I could have made that pick. But the fact of the matter is that Kwesi isn't your typical GM. He doesn't think like GMs, and that's the reason that we signed or we hired him, because he doesn't think like normal GMs. And so when he doesn't think like normal GMs, people want to lose their mind. It's like, hey, let's remember what we actually brought him in here for. And I think that plays to what he's got going on here. I think another thing that makes me think about it is that we need to get as many draft picks as possible so then he can practice drafting. Maybe not practice drafting, but make a bunch of drafts and then learn from those draft picks and see what he's doing. So I would rather him pick 7, 9, 10, 12 times in the draft this upcoming season, and maybe get 2, 3 guys that we actually get because he doesn't have a high hit rate yet, and then work with that instead of getting 5 draft picks or 3 draft picks because we sold the farm and we hit on nothing, and then we're back in the same spot, right? So there's going to be a lot of guys hitting the waiver wire this week. There's going to be a lot of guys for the rest of the season that are going to be randomly showing up on the waiver wire, linebackers, defensive tackles, O-linemen, because people are going to be doing a lot of roster changes in the upcoming weeks to kind of facilitate the roster they want to keep going forward with. And if it's just depth that we need, that's what we have to do. I don't think that in the perfect situation, going out there and trading and giving away a couple firsts, for example, for Sauce Gardner, isn't going to make the impact that we need. Yes, he's a great player. He potentially would be around for a long time, but even with a guy, like, let's say even if we have a top tier corner that we made a move for, how much is that going to increase the probabilities that us actually making the Super Bowl? Not very much. Let's be real. Let's be realistic here, guys. At this point, the way that we are, like I've been saying, at best, we're a 12-win team, and at worst, we're an 8 or 9-win team. And making a bunch of trades for depth players right now isn't going to improve that in the slightest. So if we make it to the playoffs and we get a little bit of playoff experience for JJ, that is way more valuable to us than trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat and pull off a miracle here, right? Because if a miracle is going to happen, okay, it's going to happen with the roster that we have now. It can easily do that with picking up or trading for anybody. And so we need all our draft capital that we need. We need to bolster our locker room with a bunch of young guys, a bunch of undrafted free agents in order to start building for the future. Because these guys that we have right now, these free agent pickups that we picked up over the last couple of years and now, they've really just been stopgap guys for us to transition into the build that we got going on, to transition into the J.J. McCarthy era, right? So we need to have as many draft picks. And so I think it's a good decision that we didn't waste any capital and we didn't make any moves, because we probably would have gotten a player that wouldn't have panned out, that wouldn't have fit to the system. You know, a lot of things have to be right for guys to come into our defense, especially when it's a Brian Flores-led defense with a specific scheme in mind. And if you're not a B-flow guy, it doesn't matter how good of a player you are. If you don't fit into the system and you can't make the field, it doesn't really matter. So I think we did really good. I think regardless of what the situation is, we're still on the same trajectory. You know, the second half, the last third of the season is going to be where we're going to see the true potential. And one other thing that I want to say, say what you want to say about Kwesi, but I think the more that I think about this last win and what's happened this entire season, because that team that we faced, the Lions, was the closest to the team that we wished to had started with health-wise, and with all the players that we needed. I know we were still missing a handful of players here, and we weren't 1,000% healthy yet, but we were as close that we've been all season. And that defense shut down this Lions offense. Now I'm thinking, are the reason that we brought all these guys in here so that we can run the havoc on the Lions? Because they're our major obstacle when it comes to winning the North and having a great playoff seeding in order to make a really tangible run into the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking maybe we just run with the guys that we have, and let us get healthy and see what the plan was and the vision for this season is going forward. Because I feel like as we continue to progress, like I said, I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I circled game 7, 8, and 9. Because I thought that these are going to be the games where we start to get right. I thought for a different reason. I thought it would be, these are the games where J.J. McCarthy would stop looking like a total rookie like he would at the beginning of the season. But it turned out it was health, and J.J. McCarthy didn't really need to develop as much as I thought he might. And after that game, he looked like he didn't look as flustered as he had at times. He had a lot of time. He had a lot of help that he was desperately needing in that second game of his career. And he made all the plays when it mattered. His stat lines isn't going to jump off the page and make you go, oh, we got the freaking next GOAT. But you know what? It reminds me of the stat lines that Ben Roethlisberger used to put out in his first year. I remember always crucifying the man. I was like, man, how is this guy winning games? He threw for 140 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, what is this? I thought I had become so accustomed to seeing quarterbacks throw for 300-plus yards regularly, at least 250-plus. And I'm looking at Ben Roethlisberger like, what is he doing out here, man? He got 167 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. What is this? This is ugly to me. But boy, I didn't know what I didn't know. And he was being a game manager there, and he was doing what he needed to do to win. He was a winner. We know that Ben Roethlisberger is a winner. He has the ability to put on the cape in the playoffs and do what he needs to do to win games. That's something that Sam Darnold doesn't have. That's something that Daniel Jones doesn't have. That's something that J.J. McCarthy has. And he proved that this weekend. Because it wasn't perfect. It wasn't near perfect. It wasn't 155 passer rating and 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, 315 yards, some crazy stat line. It wasn't like that. He did what he's been doing his entire career. From the high school level all the way to Michigan. He identifies what needs to be done to win, and then he does that. He doesn't have an ego. He's a leader. He's got great mental fortitude, and he's got that clutch gene, that mentality, that delusional confidence in himself, that when the time comes in the playoffs, when you get smacked in the mouth and you have to go out there and do something to win, he's going to do it. And I believe in him. He made every single pass needed. He threw a back shoulder. He threw into coverage. He led his receivers. He adjusted on the run and watched how Hawk stopped his route and stopped in the end zone, and he was able to pick that up and throw the pass when it needed. Those are the things that you need to be a franchise quarterback. The stats are going to come. He's going to get better. He also made a ton of mistakes. He also had a little bit of accuracy issues, passing a little bit behind. I get it. A lot of pressure is going on him, but he didn't let those mistakes phase him like Sam Darnold would, like Daniel Jones would, where it just freaking creates a cascading effect, a domino effect of like, oh, this bad mistake transitions into the next bad mistake, into the turnover, into the pick, into before you know it, you're down 3 scores, and Sam Darnold's got a freaking passer rating of 55, like we saw in the playoffs. So I really like what I'm seeing from J.J. McCarthy. I think the ceiling is that high, and we got a lot to look forward to when it comes to our Minnesota Vikings. So like I said, I'm very happy that we didn't reach for any players. We didn't waste any draft capital. We stayed patient. I feel like this game solidified everything that Kwesi and KOC and Brian Flores have been basically preaching internally all offseason and saying, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're building. And the players that we brought in this year are going to make that happen. Detroit Lions aren't going to come into our house, and we're not going to go into the Detroit Lions house and lose anymore. We're going to win. We're going for heads. And it was clearly obvious that Brian Flores literally has obsessed over the Lions all offseason, because he was doing things that he didn't even try last year against the Lions. And when it started working, he started doubling down, and it became easier and easier and easier. And that's because we got the players that he wanted. You know, I've been joking a little bit. We got 2 of the biggest, highest paid setup men in the league, Jonathan Allen and Hargrave, that haven't produced like they needed to. But you know what? Hargrave showed up last week against the Lions. Jonathan Allen had a better game. And maybe now we're seeing why they got brought onto this team, because they saw the weaknesses in the O-line for the Lions and where they needed to attack, especially in the pass rush. Because if you put that pass rush into Jared Goff's hands, he gets flustered. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't have that mental fortitude. I've been saying, guys, stop hyping up Jared Goff. He's this generation's Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan. Name whatever quarterback you want to name. A quarterback that has all the elite stats in the regular season and does nothing in the playoffs. That's who Jared Goff is. And he proved it yesterday. Because what did we do? We made it a big game. And what does big game Goff do in big games? He struggles. He doesn't have what it takes to carry his team to victory, because that's what they needed yesterday or Sunday, and he didn't do it. So I think the crystal ball, the picture, the metaphorical jigsaw puzzle that we're slowly putting together about our Minnesota Vikings this season is starting to become clearer and clearer. We're setting up to dethrone these Lions and take control of this NFC North. And yeah, it wasn't pretty to start the year. We've had a lot of injuries, and it's caused a lot of demoralization and frustration in the fan base. But not for me. I've been saying since the beginning, guys, this is going to be a roller coaster season. We got a solid roster, solid coaching, solid organization behind our rookie quarterback. We know that this roster can carry even a rookie through his growing pains to, 8, 9, 10, maybe on the best case scenario, 11, 12 wins. And yesterday we saw that because the roster showed out. When J.J. McCarthy's on the field, this team has another level of confidence, another level of belief. And that is beautiful to see. Because we left so much meat on the bone. And we still embarrass these Lions. How many years now has it been where we come to the last drive of the game where we need to get that first down and get to victory formation, especially last year. And we mess it up and we leave a minute and 26, a minute and 45, 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock for the other team to come back and make us pay all the time. And guess what happened this week? We didn't just throw 3 running plays in a row and just hope to not turn over the ball and just play defense like we usually do. We put the ball in our young quarterback because he knows what to do in those situations. And man, what a hell of a throw. There was only one read in that play. It was Jalen Naylor. We're going to let Addison and everybody else take the rest of the secondary out of it and give that one-on-one matchup. And JJ, I know it was a one-read option there because he threw that ball well before Jalen Naylor even turned to look for it. He was literally just getting into his break when the ball was released. And what an incredible play and trust to have in his receiver for him to throw that back shoulder throw to a specific point, and it was a freaking dart. Ooh, it was beautiful. You know what Sam Darnold would have done last year in that situation? He would have stared down either Addison or JJ and then thrown the ball away, and we would have had to punt the ball and play defense. I don't know about you, but that's not the I want to see victory formations. I want to finish people out. I want to clock manage teams to death like they do to us. And we're learning. We're becoming that team. I think it's a great time to be a Minnesota Vikings fans because it's just the beginning. It's year 1 and we're getting these kind of flashes. We saw a historic flash in game 1 from J.J. McCarthy, the only rookie quarterback to go out there or first-time starter quarterback to go out there and have pull off a comeback win in the fourth quarter of 11 points or more. Historic, never been done before. And then yesterday or on Sunday, what did you do? Another historic flash. He joins Dan Marino and Tom Brady, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not Tom Brady, my mistake. He joins Dan Marino and Patrick Mahomes as the only other first-year starter to win 2 road games within the division. How is that for a flash, Vikings fans? 2 historic flashes in 3 games. Ooh, it's looking pretty damn good to be a Vikings fan right now. So, guys, don't fret that we didn't make any moves. There are going to be a lot of depth players that are going to be available that are going to come up on waiver wire. We're going to make some moves. We're going to see some practice squad guys coming on to our team from other teams. And we're going to pick up some waiver wire guys, or maybe even pick up a free agent here and there to make some depth, just in case we do need a corner or a safety. I think we got this, guys. I think this is going to be a really good season. We're going to see a lot of growth, a lot of development. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Vikings fans, we're still on pace for 12 wins. Wait, wouldn't that be sweet? Wouldn't that be something special to see number 9, J.J. McCarthy, putting on the metaphorical belt at the end of the season and going, oh, look at that, boys. We got 12 wins. And it was because of what we did as a team. J.J. McCarthy leading us. Oh, man, we'll all be good. And hey, when you got that kind of clutch gene and that will to win, maybe a miracle run to the Super Bowl is within the cards. Because JJ refuses to lose. Ha! Good gravy. It's going to be a good end of the season. But don't get too hyped up, Vikings fans. We're still going to have a bunch of freaking lows as well. We're going to see some mistakes. We're going to be seeing some bonehead freaking plays by our rookie. We're going to see, of course, we're going to see interceptions. We're going to see fumbles. We're going to see bad sacks. We're going to see bad throws. It's all going to still happen. Don't forget, it's still his first year. But every single one of those mistakes, he's going to learn from. And then in year 2, or maybe even as early as the playoffs, he might start putting some of those lessons into practice and start showing why people say that he's just a freaking winner. All he does is win. Cue the DJ Khaled music. I can't. I don't want to get copyright strike. But anyways, all he does is win, and maybe that's all he's going to do for us Minnesota Vikings fans going forward. So guys, don't be upset when we have some rocky patches here for the rest of the season. Fingers crossed, we sneak into the playoffs and we get ourselves a little bit of playoff experience, and maybe we get a little bit of luck in a deeper run than we expect. Because if that happens, guys, we found our man. I already think we found our guy. I've been saying since before the draft, this is the quarterback that I want. I spent hours and hours watching Drake May over and over, all his highlights, all his passes from college. Same with J.J. McCarthy, same with Michael Penix Jr., same with Bo Nix. And out of all those guys, I was like, J.J. is the best guy. And Drake may be the only closest one to him. But I knew Michael Penix wasn't close to as good as J.J. McCarthy. Plus, he's an old man now for NFL rookie quarterback standards. And Bo Nix, he might be something. Let's be real. But I don't think he has the ceiling that J.J. does. So, hands down, what we got one of the best quarterbacks in that league, in that draft. Ooh, it's so good to be a Vikings fan, guys. I hope you guys had a great freaking live with me today. I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm going to call it here for now. It's been an hour we've been talking, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't worry, guys. We're going to see a bunch of signings in the next couple days, picking up some waiver wire steals, bringing in some depth. Because our GM thinks a little differently. So don't get upset when he's thinking differently. All right? Have a good one, guys. I love every single one of you guys, regardless of which fan base you're from. And I hope your team does well, except for when you're facing us this week. That's you, Baltimore. You guys can handle losing one more game and still making the playoffs. So unfortunately, it's going to have to come at the expense of the J.J. McCarthy train. It's not going to be a pretty one. I guarantee that. But it's going to be a good one. All right, guys, have a great one. Take care, and I'll see you on the next live.